Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, or good morning if you're tuning in from to the side of the world. And welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram primarily, and we can also be found on YouTube for these videos. Head on to those platforms, search for the Hard Compound, you will find us. Come in and join the fun. We're here to share a love of motorsport, nothing else, no controversy, no nonsense, no arguments. Just here to share a love of motorsport, and we do that in the form of usually 3 written articles every day that go out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. About 9 o'clock in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and about 8 o'clock in the evening here in the UK. These take the form of race reviews, even race previews, throwbacks, birthdays, breaking news, any liveries that are coming out. And anything we can shake a stick at, really, and we cover everything from Formula One cars to touring cars to supercars to IndyCar, NASCAR, rallying, bikes, the whole lot, really, as much as we can. So come along and join in the fun. Excuse me, in case you hadn't noticed, we also do live video interviews just like this one. And just like this one, these go out on our Facebook, our Twitter, and our YouTube channel. They're automatically saved in the live section on YouTube and in the video section on Facebook, so you can watch them back. All good, isn't it? We've done well over 180 of these. I won't name all the guests because I can't. But just to give you an idea, we've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti, Mr. Jackie Ickx, with Jackie Oliver, Chip Ganassi, Hans Stuck, Brian Redman, boss of Pro Drive, Mr. David Richards. We've spoken with Indy 500 winners like Ari Lyon, like Alonso Jr., guys like Will Power and Alex Palou. We spoke with David Brabham, Stephanie Hansen, Carl Wendlinger, Mika Salo, Mark Sura, touring car drivers from across the world, guys like Ivan Muller, Gabriele Tarquini. We've spoken with Greg Murphy. We've spoken with Fabrizio Giovanardi. Many. You get the idea. So do go and check those out when you get a minute. But don't do it just yet, because we've got another great guest joining us this evening. Someone I've been wanting to speak to for a while. And he's the first sort of pretty active supercars driver that we've had on. And he's joining us from tomorrow morning, if you're watching in the UK, which is pretty cool. He's also the reigning Australian Trans Am champion and the reigning Bathurst 1000 winner. Very cool. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring him in. He's up nice and early in Brisbane, and we're going to bring him in right now. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Todd Hazelwood.
Good morning, or good afternoon, should I say.
Good morning.
How are we doing?
You. Good evening to everyone else on this side of the world. Todd, how are you?
I'm very good. No, it's been a very busy start to 2025. I can't believe we're already halfway through the year. It's been a lot of fun, but we've had some success, which is even better. But yeah, no complaints over the side of the world.
Yeah, excellent. Good to hear. I mean, because you're in the middle of kind of winter down there, aren't you? I kind of keep forgetting. It feels very weird. It's all backwards. And you're still out racing, as you say. You've had some success. I mean, just want to touch actually on the weekend. Obviously, a bit of a mixed bag, as we were just discussing off camera, but a bit of damage limitation in the Trans Am series there.
Yeah, thanks. No, it was all going really well, to be honest. We had a great start to the weekend, fast in practice. We put on pole by 3/10. So, yeah, have managed to qualify in the front row every round so far this year. And we, at this, leading into the round, we had 6 out of 7 race wins. So we've had a really dominant start to the year. And yeah, we had a race win on Saturday. Everything was going to plan. And then Sunday, a little bit of chaos unfolded. Got bowled off the track on the first lap. Went back to 20th or something, and we had to fight our way back and damage limitation, I guess, for the rest of the weekend. So we still managed to finish second in race 3. So a good fight back. And we only managed to lose 5 points to our championship rival. So if we call that a bad weekend, it still wasn't too bad. Could have been a lot worse. So you have good and bad weekends, and we're probably due for a bad weekend because the start of this year has been tremendous, to be honest. So I'll cop it on the chin and get ready for the next one now.
Yeah, absolutely right. And as they say, you kind of win championships on your bad weekends, don't you? So yeah, let's hope it's out the way. Let's hope it's out the way for now. Good job with the with damage limitation. Right, just before we crack on, just want to say hello to some people in the comments. Just say hello to some folks. There's a few of you tuning in already. That's lovely. Andy Hopley from Hoppers Motorsport Vlogs. Hello, Andy. John Kane, one of the marshals up at Knock Hill Circuit here in the UK. Good to have you in. Andrew Bishop. I know you love your supercars, Andrew, so you're looking forward to this. Dylan Stratton. Hello, Dylan. Just down the road from me. Hope you're well. And everyone else as well. If you have any comments or questions, do put them in. We'll see them in real time. All the technology seems to be working. So, yeah, we'll work them in as we go. Or if you just want to sit and have a chat amongst yourselves, or just listen along, whatever you like. Right. Housekeeping out of the way. We sort of touched on this season. Obviously, it's gone very well. Last year was a very good year for a couple of reasons, and we'll come to that a bit later. What I'd like to do, though, is on these chats is start right at the very start, because everyone's got their own journey into motorsport. Some are similar, some are completely out of left field. Obviously, you're from Adelaide, which is a great motorsport city anyway. Folks of my age will remember the Grand Prix there. Where did your interest in motorsport come from? Did it stem from anything around the hometown?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I was probably brainwashed at birth, being born into a motorsport family. Ironically, I actually did my first lap around a racetrack at the 1995 Australian Grand Prix circuit, where my dad was working as a Targa rally officer, and they threw they got the chance to do a parade lap in their own cars at a certain stage of the weekend. So they threw a baby blanket over the back seat, and they chucked me in, and they took me for a hot lap, ironically. So you could arguably say from 6 weeks old, I had no hope. So hence why I'm here today still, I guess. But yeah, I guess my family were just massive race fans. They loved the World Motorbike Championship, or MotoGP as we call it, and Formula One. Supercars is obviously massive here in Australia, and they watched that religiously every weekend. It was always on TV, and my dad also used to do hill climbs
Cool.
when I was growing up as a kid. So I was, have great memories at sort of any age from sort of 3 years old to 5 years old. Always been at the racetrack every second or third weekend at the hill climbs, in a big XC Falcon at the time. So yeah, I guess from a young age, I was just surrounded by it. I didn't know anything different, and certainly when I started getting to that 4 or 5 years old, my passion for sport, whether it was Hot Wheels, playing with the Hot Wheels, or watching them on TV, putting in the VHS, and rather than watching cartoons as a kid, I was watching Bathurst 1000 replay or documentaries on Ayrton Senna or something like that. So I guess I was probably a little bit different to most kids at a tender age. But yeah, just a massive fan, I guess, from the start of it. But yeah, sort of stems back from my dad being very much, I guess, active on two wheels. He used to do desert racing as a kid. Didn't really have any support from, I guess, his parents, so he was very much doing it himself. So when the opportunity come along for me wanting to get involved in racing, he was chomping at the bit as much as me. So yeah, it was very much a family effort from a young age. And yeah, got my first go-kart when I was 7 years old. I started in dirt karting, which in Australia, dirt karting is actually highly regarded, especially where I grew up in Adelaide. It was actually bigger than bitumen karting at that stage. So
Because
we were
we do not
racing
have
by
that.
the
We
time I
do.
was 8 years old. Yeah, yeah,
Like
it was
we
really
do.
cool. So yeah, by the time I was 8 years old, I was racing 14-year-olds, and
Wow.
really stiff competition, throwing the go-kart sideways. Basically, the harder you drove, the faster you went in dirt. So it was very much a great grooming and starting point for me as a kid.
Yeah, and obviously being on the dirt, which we don't have here. We might do, but I've I've not seen any. These will go a bit easier from the start. But I mean, that's obviously karting is known as a great place to kind of to learn your craft, to hone your skills from a young age. But doing it on dirt must be hyper kind of magnified when it comes to controlling a kart. I mean, I sort of and as you say, it's kind of highly regarded. I guess there's been quite a few have come through that route, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's certainly not the most common route, I guess, if you call it. But one thing that really stood out for me was, my ability to read the play, being adaptive in conditions. So when I eventually went into bitumen karting when I was 12 years old, at that stage I couldn't go into juniors like I was in dirt karting. So I stayed in dirt karting till I was 12, made that transition because the dream was always to go circuit racing, I guess. So I never really had aspirations of doing speedway or anything like that. It wasn't really what interested me at that stage of my life. I was very much a one-eyed Ford supporter and wanted to go be at supercar racing in the future. So, yeah, that was sort of what transpired. But yeah, whenever it rained, it didn't matter if I had slicks or wets on the card, I would blitz the rest of the field, and that really come from just having that, I guess, adaptability from what I learned in my dirt karting days and being comfortable in uncomfortable scenarios. So
Yeah.
I think it's really prominent what we see with MotoGP riders. You know, the riders that are quite handy on, say, two wheels in the dirt. Traditionally, you know, they have that skill set that other riders don't. So for me, it sort of feels like the same from coming from that dirt karting pedigree. So yeah, definitely, yeah, a really important step in my development as a driver as a tender age.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess, I mean, I wouldn't say it was easier on the tarmac, on the bitumen, as you call it. I mean, but as you say, you had that adaptability, which which is invaluable at a young age. I mean, do you remember? I mean, I kind of guess that you, given your interest in motorsport from a young age, and from a very very young age. I mean, I guess once you started racing karts, you thought this is what I want to do, rather than let's see how it goes. If we get success, maybe we can explore it. I guess you were always the kind of, I want to do this. This is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was probably more goal driven than most at a young age. I put a lot of pressure on myself and I was very hard on myself because I wanted to win. You know, I was obsessed with winning. I still remember Dad having a conversation with me when I was a kid. That was actually during that transitional phase, going from dirt karting to bitumen karting, where we were quite dominant at that stage, winning a lot of races. And, you know, Dad was sort of like, well, son, you know, you're going to have to reset here. You know, it's going to be tough. And you know, I just didn't take no for an answer and I actually won my first race meeting on bitumen karting, you know, starting off the rear field on my P plates. And I think Dad was like, okay, we've got a problem here. So it was, yeah, one of those things. But, you know, the beauty of motorsport, you know, particularly go karting, it teaches you a lot about life, how you deal with your highs and your lows and how you deal with your emotions. And you know, essentially you're running a glorified business from a very young age, especially when you start getting to the professional side of the sport. So it's taught me a lot in that time. But yeah, for me, the itch to go racing, the need to be successful has always been there. And I guess in more my professional time of my career, it's probably been tougher to keep that level of intensity. Like, you know, when I was younger, it was just easy and natural. Whereas after you've done it for 20 odd years, it starts to eat away at you. It takes a lot of life and energy out of you. So
Yeah,
trying to keep that burn inside my belly has it's never been hard to keep alive, but when you have your tough days, it really can bring you down. So that's the beauty of this sport. And hey, I'm still doing it now, and I'm still loving what I'm doing, and we're still running races, so it's all pretty good.
yeah, happy days. I mean, obviously, you said that there was that need to be successful from a young age, like just the way you're kind of built. I mean, I did see just within the karting once you'd moved on onto the bitumen karting. I got here, and there's probably more, but we've got here that you won 5 open state titles, 4 close state titles, the City of Melbourne and City and Adelaide titles. I mean, you you must have thought that, one, this is what I want to do, but two, I'm pretty good at this. When did you start kind of looking at moving into cars? When did it first become a possibility?
Yeah, it all come around pretty quick, to be honest. At that stage, I was racing for an Australian kart brand called Arrow, and yeah, at that stage they had put a what they called the Arrow Awards program, and it was in conjunction with Miguel, Formula Ford chassis supplier at the time, and they put a platform together. All I guess they handpicked 6 of the best karters in the country at that stage, and they said we're going to provide you all with 3 test day and then essentially whoever's fastest on the day will go get a free race meeting. And yeah, we had some pretty handy steerers on that day, and everything from my end. It was my first time ever jumping in a race car, so
Yeah,
I'd hardly driven a H pad and gearbox before, using a clutch, 4-wheel brakes. It was quite daunting as a 14-year-old. And
yeah,
yeah, went out to Winton Raceway. We had a great day. It started off a little bit rough. I was sort of struggling to get my head around it all, but by the end of the day, we had some good pace and yeah, got elected to win a race meeting in a Formula Ford. Essentially, it was all fully funded. It was a great experience, but that stopped there and then. We finished second on debut. We had a great race weekend, and sort of thinking, geez, this is going to be the kickstart of my career in circuit racing. It all happened like this. It was all happening. And I guess when you're in go-karts, you feel like you win races, you win state titles, we're doing everything right. But I guess we were so naive, we didn't understand how the world of motorsport actually works, and I had a pretty rude awakening as a 14-year-old that, we didn't have any money at that stage, and we weren't going to go racing in Formula Ford anymore, because the next opportunity had to be fully funded from ourselves. And to be honest, we were struggling even just to do go-karting at that stage. We were racing nearly 30 times a year, traveling around the country. We'd camp at the track, sleeping out of a tent, and we were doing everything we could to try and keep the dream alive, just in go karting. Stealing tires out the bin. We were doing fundraiser. We were selling like the fundraiser caramello koalas and Freddo frogs at the track. A dollar at a chocolate. We were fundraising to try and just put the go karts on the track, let alone do Formula Ford. So for
Wow.
me, it was a massive reality check. I was still at school. The team basically said, "Well, Hazelwood, you're pretty much going to have a stiff career ahead, because your family doesn't come from money. You don't have a family business you can rely on. So maybe look at getting an apprenticeship, or doing something a little bit different." But for me, that really, I guess, fired me up inside, and it got me even more motivated to prove people wrong, that if you work hard, that we'll be able to make this work. Didn't know how, but we took it day by day, week by week, and we just kept chipping away at it. And then we essentially took half a year off. We did only a handful of race meetings in go-karts, just doing the major events. I think we did 6 or 7 events, just saving up. And we were then actively looking for sponsors. I was walking around all the industrial areas of Adelaide. I didn't have a license at that stage, so Mum was driving me around, or I was doing meetings after school and all sort of madness, just trying to find a dollar to put the race car on the track, or even try and get a race car at that stage. So
Wow.
we eventually sort of got some funding together. It was a bit rough and ready. Honestly, the car was a shitbox. We should never have used it, but we ended up getting a Formula Ford for the 2012 Victorian State Series. It was a very competitive series, 40 cars in the field, and we had one of the oldest in the category. And we put good use to it. We had some good success. We didn't get any race wins, but we had a consistent year, and we got 4th out of 40 in the field. So
Wow.
it was sort of helped get me on the grid, and then things transpired pretty quickly from there. Speaking with a couple of people, we couldn't afford to do Formula Ford again the following year, and we actually took a bit of a beeline. And I had my sights set on still doing open wheel race cars, and love Formula 3. And I thought, at this stage, being in Australia, if I raced a Formula 3 car, that would help make that transition into Europe a lot easier, as opposed to doing Formula Ford for another year. And ironically, the pricing at that stage, it was probably one of those too good to be true sort of deals. But at that stage of my career, I was 16, turning 17, just desperate to go racing, and got offered an opportunity to race a Formula 3 car. So
Wow.
it all come about pretty late in the piece. Jumped in the car, went really well, and I was basically, after school, I was working on the car with an old Scotsman, Ian Richards, well known, I guess, in Formula 3 world,
Yeah.
heavily connected around the world as well. And we sort of, every afternoon when I was working on the car, would dream about what was always going to be next. And it was quite an exciting time of my career. Had big aspirations to go to Europe, and we tried to organise test days with Fortec and Carlin and things like that. But again, money was the root of all evil, and it was just holding me back. We were struggling to do the Formula 3 championship here in Australia. I couldn't even afford an engine rebuild, and
Wow.
it started to get really tough by the year ended. So we finished second in our time in Formula Ford in 2013. Crazy to think that's over 10 years ago now. So lots happened in that space, but it was. I guess the first 2 years of open or circuit racing out of go-karts, it was tough, put a lot of pressure on the family financially,
Sure.
very stressful. Both either myself and my dad, probably, and my whole family, probably struggled to deal with it, because it was very, very scary times in the Hazelwood household. But we look back at that now as fond memories, and we survived. And we always just said, we'll just take it one week at a time. We'll fall forward, don't fall backwards. Any setback we would have, we'll fall back, we'll fall forward. So that was always the motivation to keep us going.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, just want to touch on that time in F3 because obviously you said that you'd never driven an H-pattern gearbox or anything when you got into Formula Ford. When you got into Formula 3, obviously you've got slicks and wings and downforce and stuff to contend with. I've spoken to a few people on here. Some have struggled with it. Some took to it straight away. I mean, from the sounds of it, it sounds like you took to it pretty well. And I think you said you came second in the class and everything. I mean, what did you think the first time you drove a car with wings and downforce and all that good stuff?
Oh, best feeling in the world. The feeling of downforce, the big grip from the slicks, and obviously low to the ground. It's like laying back in your lounge chair. You're heavily laid back. Your feet are up in the air. Basically, it's an odd feeling from a driving point of view. And oh man, just the getting that commitment level right. Trusting the downforce. It's one of those things where if you have a moment, you get a little bit loose in a corner, you go, all right, you need to rewire the brain to go, rather than actually back off a little bit. I found my limit. It's the opposite. I need to push a little bit more, get the tire to work a bit harder, get the wings working harder so I can generate more grip, get around the corner quicker. So from a mentality point of view, it does play tricks on the mind, especially as a young 16-year-old. You're sort of second guessing yourself at that stage with the knowledge that I didn't have. I was learning very quickly, but look, we took it in our strides. We had a few moments where of greatness. We had a few moments of sadness, but hey, that was all part of the learning process, and yeah, we got through it well. It was great memories. Probably honestly one of the best race cars. I still look back and yeah, it was one of the best cars I ever driven in that time. Loved my open wheelers. Yeah, so yeah, great memories.
And just quickly, talk about learning fast. I did have a look. I think, do correct me if I'm wrong, but the first round was at Bathurst. The first round of the season at
Yeah,
Mount Panorama. I mean, in at
what a
the
place
deep
to
end,
start. Yeah.
and I did see that it was wet. I think was the second one, or was it damp and everything? I mean, talk about baptism of fire. I mean, even not even in Australian motorsport, in global motorsport, you can't probably get anywhere more tough to make your debut in a series.
No,
In
there's
the
no
World
more
Series in
punishing track
Bathurst.
here in Australia than going to Bathurst, let alone in the wet. So
Yeah.
yeah, massive commitment across the top of the mountain. By the time you exit the, like you start making your way across the top of the mountain, you're basically flat all the way to skyline. So trying to get that level of commitment in undulating concrete walls. It was my first time at Bathurst as well, so I'd never been to the place before, never driven the circuit, and
Grief.
it blows your mind. Like, I know us drivers talk about Bathurst highly regarded and how much of a challenge it is, but we talk about it for a reason, because it is just so unique to anything else you could race, and
Yeah.
the way the track dips and falls, the blind corners, the high speed, the concrete walls. Obviously, they don't forgive. They don't move. So yeah, it's just a proper balls to the wall style circuit. You need to be committed. You need to be brave to be fast, and to go there in a Formula 3 car was, yeah, I was absolutely shitting myself. We couldn't
Not
afford the car
surprised.
at that stage either. It was, if we crashed, we were out for the season. So to go there for round one was very nerve wracking, but we survived. I think we got second on debut there, and we had a
Yeah.
good showing, so it wasn't all bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I can't get. I mean, I think the only thing we've got close to Bathurst, I get in Europe, is I guess Spa, and I was there a few weeks ago, and someone actually said on the way out, I said, "Oh, it's my first time I've been to Spa. What a fantastic place." And this guy just went, "You need to get yourself to Bathurst, mate." I was like, "Wow." It was like, yeah, it was almost like you ain't seen nothing yet. If you to go to Bathurst, what a place to start. Goodness me. And I did actually see on that grid that year, guys like Mr. LeBrock and Andre Heimgartner and guys like that were on there. So obviously, a talented grid and guys who have come through into supercars with you. I mean, I've got a note here to ask you: were your eyes on the single-seater route? And you've just obviously said that you were looking to get to Europe and do single-seaters, things like that. But it was the end of that season. You kind of went into the touring car, supercars, tin tops, whatever you want to call them. You went down that route. And this was mentioned by Andy Hopley in the comments. Evening, Andy. The Shannon Supercar Showdown. He says he was watching it on YouTube a few years ago. I was as well. How did that come about, being entered in that? And if you can tell us Brits exactly what it is for those who are watching.
Yeah, it was a really cool opportunity. So it was actually the third season that they had. It was essentially trying to find the next supercar star here in Australia. So it's a reality TV show essentially, trying to find a race car drivers. So they had drivers from around the world. As I mentioned there, Dan Camish was in the
Yeah,
season 3 that I was in. So you had, I think we had 2 guys from the UK, and 6 other Aussies from memory. And yeah, so the first year it was aired. Cam Waters won the series, so he's obviously well known in the Supercars Championship, doing great things, and that was basically his first shot in Supercars as well. So yeah, for me, yeah, great opportunity. I remember getting the phone call. I was on my P plates here in Australia, driving home from school. Got this random, Melbourne number calling me. And normally you get quite excited. For me, I get quite excited when I see a random phone call because it might be a sponsor that I've hit up, or a long lost connection that I hit up a couple of weeks ago, and they're finally getting back to me. So I picked up the phone straight away. And yeah, there was a production team that were organising the cast for the season 3 Shannon Supercar Showdown. So obviously, I applied straight away, and I was elected, which was fantastic. And then
brilliant.
they changed the people that were running the show was the factory Ford team at that stage, being Ford Performance Racing. So for me, it was a bit of a childhood dream opportunity, because the opportunity to win was a factory test, or a test day with the factory Ford team, and become a glorified test driver, so to speak. So yeah, for me, I was obviously, yeah, chomping at the bit, ready to go, wanted to be part of the opportunity. And it was essentially, it was, I think it was filmed over a week and a half or 2 weeks at Calder Park. We were all sleeping in what essentially like a Winnebago travel van, and staying at the track together, filming on set. And every morning you'd wake up with a camera right in your face, they're getting every reaction of you. It was quite surreal. Everywhere we went, there was a camera. They were trying to create drama and all the emotion that you're trying to drag out of you, saying certain questions to try and make you say quirky answers. But I was like, no, I'm not buying into all this stuff. I'm just gonna be myself and do the talking on the track. So yeah, we had a range of challenges. I guess we did like a Motorcana challenge, we did a simulator challenge, Formula Ford lap time challenge. We had cone slaloms, fitness challenges. It was a bit of everything, I guess. And at that stage, I managed to get an opportunity to get to the semi-final, so the final 4. And the challenge for the semi-final was to drive a V8 supercar. So basically, whoever had the fastest, I guess, combined laps over 5 laps, so the most consistent over 5 laps, would then go into the finals, and then it would be basically whoever's the fastest in the final wins. So yeah, never driven a supercar before. I was up against 2 other guys that had previously driven a supercar, so I knew, the competition was pretty stiff, and everyone was doing a good job, and managed to go out and just nail it. I just nailed my first 5 laps. They actually took us for a passenger lap with my coach at the time was Will Davison. So he
Oh yeah,
two-time Bathurst champion. So he basically said, "All right, we're going to put you in the passenger seat. We'll take you for a couple of hot laps, and then you go. That's your time to shine." So I sort of got a bit of a feel of how hard we could brake, and the power, and obviously the acceleration of a supercar is super impressive for how big and heavy these cars are. But the grip that they've got is quite impressive. So got a bit of a visual of what to do, and just went out and sent it basically. I had nothing to lose. I was, just turned 17 in a V8 supercar for the very first time. So managed to get into then the final, set the fastest lap, and we won the show. And it was as simple as that. It was all dramatized. They kept us at the workshop till the late hours of the night doing the filming. And honestly, for me, it was an absolute dream come true. It was a pivotal moment. We basically just run out of money. Um, to
right.
doing our Formula 3 championship. So I was really at a crossroads in my career going, well, what the hell am I going to do? Like, I was rocking a hard place basically. So yeah, essentially a TV show gave me my first shot in the supercar. It gave me an opportunity with one of the leading supercar teams in the sport, the factory Ford team. Went to the test day with them, and they were really keen to get me involved with their Super 2 program for the following season. But at that stage, they ironically had just signed Cam Waters to drive in their Super 2 team for the 2014 season. So, ironically, there wasn't a car available, so they gave me, they put a letter of recommendation into Matt Stone. So Matt Stone was based in based in Brisbane, sorry. And I've never met Matt before. I knew that he was the son of the legend of Jimmy Stone, who runs Stone Brothers Racing, the likes of Russell Ingall and Marcus Ambrose, so a legendary Ford team as well. So yeah, I was a naive 17-year-old. I flew to Queensland by myself with my briefcase, met Matt at the airport and shook hands on a deal to race in Super 2. And I come home and told mum and dad that we're racing Super 2, and I got no idea how we're going to pay for it, but we're doing it. It was
Wow.
very risky. There was a lot of water that had passed on the bridge by that stage by the time I'd signed with the team. But essentially, we had a big bill to pay, and we had no sponsors. I just lost my major sponsor for Jitsu. They just pulled out of motorsport altogether.
Wow.
But we basically said we either have a crack or we don't, or we pull up stumps and we don't do it at all. We got to strike while we're hot. I just won the TV show. People were talking about me.
Yeah.
Let's use this as momentum. So I'd signed a 7-round deal to run the series, and we didn't even have enough money to do the first round. So it was very daunting times, very scary times. Obviously, Matt Stone didn't know that at the time, but I can talk about that now. He knows the full story now. But yeah, as a
I kind of
17-year-old
assumed that you
fresh out
knew.
of school, it was very scary.
I kind of assumed that you knew before this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't
So
that.
we essentially, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know if I look back at it now, but yeah, we managed to scrounge some money together to get to the first round, pay the bills, and obviously to help moving forward. Mum and dad, fortunately, were in that position where they were able to remortgage the house. So the loan didn't actually get approved until after practice one when we were racing at the streets of Adelaide for the first round of the Adelaide 500. So I was basically driving a race car that we couldn't afford. We didn't have a loan approved for, and the rest is history. I guess we went on in our first season. We got the Rookie of the Year. We didn't. We got a couple of. I think we had a podium finish and a few other major highlights, which was really cool. So in a super competitive year, the risk was worth taking, and we got the Supercars gong at the end of the year for the Mike Cable Young Gun Award, which is quite a prestigious award,
Yeah.
and I guess, just we're slowly climbing up the ladder in the supercar ranks, which was great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that first year, and again, I always like to look at where things start every season. We touched on your F3 at Bathurst. Your first race in a Super 2, excuse me, was at home on the Adelaide circuit. That must have felt fantastic, being able to just go and race at home on that circuit as well. I mean, to me, it's still my favourite street circuit in the world. I absolutely love it. What was it like to race that first weekend? I mean, obviously, there was a lot going on in the background with sponsors and everything else, but when it came to the racing, did you ever just have a moment to just sit and have a bit of a smile to yourself?
Oh, 100%. It was definitely a pinch myself sort of moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Being a race fan for so long, that was the one event we always went to as kids. So we always used to sit on the inside of turn 8 or turn 7, in the GA stands, watching the stars on the inside of the circuit race around. So to be on the other side of the fence, driving a supercar around the Adelaide Parkland circuit was just phenomenal. It's such a cool track. It's still, I talk about Bathurst, but Adelaide is a very, very close second. The commitment, the challenge, the bumps, the curbs, that circuit just has it all. And the atmosphere is just phenomenal. It's by far the biggest event that we have here in Australian motorsport. I know everyone talks about the Melbourne Grand Prix, but as far as an event, Adelaide 500 is hands down the best event that you could go to here in Australia. So, it still carries on from those former days, I guess, from the Grand Prix atmosphere that it has, and the way the event is still run today is phenomenal. Like, we've got ACDC. It just got announced this week that they're going to be the lead act on Sunday at the concert. So you talk about as an event, it's phenomenal. And to go there to race on the circuit was, for me, that was almost like a bit of a dream come true.
yeah.
And the dream was just getting warmed up at that stage. I was hungry and eager for more, and we kept pressing on in the Super 2 series because we knew that it was always going to be a 3 to 4 year program for me to be able to get get an opportunity to race in supercars full time. So although we just got through the first year, it was obviously the financial troubles, and we still did have financial issues moving forward in that time. But yeah, that was always the dream. That was always the aim to help me progress in my career.
Yeah, sure. And can I just say, ACDC being anywhere is enough reason to go anywhere.
Exactly. You should fly over. It's yeah, you
Oh,
got all the reasons in the world.
motorsport and ACDC, proper stuff.
Exactly.
I'm more of an Iron Maiden guy, but ACDC, yes, love it. Good stuff. And Airborne are touring in the UK, guys. If that's your thing, similar to ACDC, always a good show. Anyway, back to motorsport. Just another quick circuit I wanted to touch on though, because it's a long way from everywhere. Up at like Wanneroo, up sort of Perth. I mean, it's a long way from Perth, and Perth's a long way from anywhere. When you're scraping around for money and stuff like that, I mean, things like travel costs to get all the way across the country, and it's not a small country for anyone who's not aware. I mean, well, even things like that was even that kind of tough just to get to places like that.
Oh, 100%. You think about driving a transporter from Brisbane to Perth, that's, it's nearly a 6,000 kilometer exercise. In
It's
one
like bigger
trip,
than driving across
it's
Europe.
we got a big country over here. So it always blows my mind when you hear people in over in Europe talking about driving from racetrack to racetrack and how brutal it is. It's like, man, you got no idea.
But really,
Over here, we drive far and long. We see nothing in our sight, and
yeah,
we finally arrive at our destination in the middle of nowhere. It sort of feels like, yeah. So that's all part of it. But no, we have a great country here in Australia, so I wouldn't change it for anything. But yeah, it's honestly, it's every part of motorsport is challenging, whether it's finding the funds, being competitive. It's the ultimate challenge, in my opinion. That's why I love the sport so much. Although it is very much an individual sport, it's very much commercialized and run like a business. There's so many elements that you need to get right to even either A, be on the grid, and then let alone be successful. That's why I think the sport is just so unique. And yeah, that's why I love that challenge. Is you really got to be all in to even have a shot. And I guess that's why I've been able to create a career off the back of that, just with that mindset. Being determined, being hungry, never settling no for an answer, never listening to my critics. I bounce against what I should be doing. So I always try to go out there and prove them wrong. So yeah, I think with that hunger and mindset, that was what helped me forge a career in the sport here in Australia.
yeah, for sure. I was just in a comment, guys. Sorry, Brits. We were talking about the Shannon Supercars showdown. Andrew Bishop has just said that the British guys were Andrew Jordan and Dan Camish, in case you're wondering. Both sort of one's a British touring car champion and one should be. He had a rotten luck in 2019, Dan Camish. But anyway, so thanks for that, Andrew. Just want to sort of skip on into sort of 2015, 2016. Firstly, 2015, you got fifth at Bathurst, which is absolutely no shame in that whatsoever. I mean, that's a top draw result. Just how different was it going from the F3 to a Super 2 car? I guess it's a completely different dynamic driving. I mean, using Bathurst as the obvious example, completely different way of driving it, I guess, just because of roll and brake loadings and width, depth perception, all that kind of stuff. I guess you can never go to Bathurst thinking I know how to do this, but I guess it must have been totally different for you going around there in a touring car.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny, I compare it now, and I think almost driving a Formula 3 car at Bathurst is easy compared to driving a big, heavy, fast touring car around Bathurst. The challenge of driving a supercar around Bathurst is up there, one of the coolest things you could do. Even to, I guess, paint a picture more so, even driving a GT3 car at Bathurst almost takes the fun out of it, of just how intense it is behind the wheel on a supercar versus a GT3 car, because they just have that little bit more grip, a little bit more security across the top of the mountain where you really do need to be committed. Whereas a supercar, you're on that teetering edge, that you get more undulation, you get more movement on the tire, and you feel alive behind the wheel. And obviously where the supercar makes up its lap time is just in pure straight line handling. So what we lose in that little bit of grip across the top of the mountain to a GT3 car, we make up in straight line. And the braking package that the supercar's got is still very, very strong. So I guess to paint a picture, when you go from an open wheel or Formula 3 to a touring car, instantly I'm driving on the right hand side of the car. I'd never done that before, coming out of go karts, Formula 4, Formula 3. So driving a a saloon car. It's big, it's heavy. The front axle is very heavy, so it has a lot of understeer compared to an open wheeler. All the weight's on the front axle, nothing on the rear. The amount of downforce is heavily reduced. The grip off the tire is heavily reduced, and then the horsepower is basically doubled. So, the dynamic of going fast is very different. And, to drive a supercar, the hardest thing from a technique point of view to master is definitely the braking. If you watch NASCAR, you probably hear a lot of people talking about Shane Van Gisbergen and SVG and his right foot braking, heel and toe, using that technique that we've all mastered over here in Australia. It's very much paramount to driving a supercar fast, is using that heel and toe right foot braking technique. Some people still do left foot brake, but there is some significant advantages, in my opinion, right foot braking and using that well. So, obviously the engine braking, using the clutch for stability on entry, all those little things. Obviously, it's such a cool element of our sport that it's, we don't have paddle shift. We still got, we still have a stick basically in the cockpit that we use as a sequential shifter now. It used to be H pattern, now sequential, but still very much a raw basic race car. No traction control, no ABS. You really have to be alert and alive when you're driving these things. And so yeah, the braking is definitely the toughest part, and then how you get the car to the corner, basically relying always on the brake to get the car turned, rotated, so then you can drive out. If you don't get the rotation done, you can't get the power down because you just haven't got enough grip off the tires. So braking is everything in a supercar, and trying to master that technique is very tough. So, especially when I first come into supercars in what they used to call the Gen 2 cars, or even before that, Gen 1, that there was a lot of setup parameters that you could change. So it was very much, you had to be as much of an engineer as a driver behind the wheel. So you really had to be in tune with all the setup and understanding what was what, understanding the front geometry of the car, understanding shocks. And at that stage, they were running twin and triple spring setups on the dampers and custom valving. It was very much an over-engineered race car when I first got into the sport. So it taught me a hell of a lot as a kid, understanding the cars, and I was working on the cars at the workshop myself with a couple of experts. So I learned a lot in that stage of my career in Super 2. And yeah, it basically gave me all the tools and ingredients to help make that transition into supercars years later, knowing I'd done my apprenticeship, I'd done my homework, and I was ready for the opportunity when it would arise.
Fantastic. Love that. Love all the insights you guys give into that kind of thing. We'll come to supercars very shortly, as you mentioned. So just quickly, you got your first podium at Sydney. It's a nice sort of thing to get, not a monkey off the back, but get that first podium in touring cars and think, right, get it ticked off and sort of move on from there. That must have been a good day.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, and we got close the year before, and we got close a couple of times that year. And street circuits, ironically, for whatever reason, have always been my specialty, and that sort of started from Super 2 days. Yeah, we always went well on street circuits. We went well at Bathurst, and yeah, ironically, it all clicked. So I don't know why, still don't know why, but yeah, it's always been a strong place for me. So yeah, to get my first podium was really cool, and I was really at that stage. I was working really closely with my major sponsor, Jason Gomersall. He basically reinvested in a team. We bought a fresh car for 2016, and then we bought another fresh car for 2017. So
Yeah.
I had the right tools, I had the right equipment. We're busting our chops off in the background, trying to raise the funding to go racing. So at that stage, we're doing fundraiser barbecues, selling sausages. So here in Australia, selling snags at a hardware store is very common. And that was what me and my family were doing on weekends that I wasn't racing. We're at the hardware shop selling sausages for $2.50, cans of drink for $2, and yeah, raising funds to go racing. So that was sort of our fundraising efforts on the side to try and keep the dream alive, so to speak.
Wow.
And in amongst that, yeah, working in the workshop with the team, working on supercars, it was a very full-on, all-in approach to try and help me progress in my career. Because at that stage, it was a hell of a lot of money, even just doing a Super 2 championship. And with supercars only having, at that stage, there was 26 seats available. It's incredibly cutthroat to get a spot on the grid against guys that have been doing it for 1 to 2 decades. It's super competitive and hard to get a slot. So you just had to do everything right to even get a chance, or even to get looking into a conversation with a team at that stage of my career. So, yeah, very intense times.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You mentioned that you brought along a fresh car. Is it 2016? You went from Ford to Holden. Now, I mean, I know you already have the most competitive car. You said you're a Ford fan. Was there a little bit of you that was like, oh no?
Yes and no. I guess at that stage, I was very much just wanted to win races. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
care. What brand was on the front of it. Still I had a little bit of part of me that I was, proud to the first supercar I drove was a Ford. That was pretty cool. But yeah, the 7-year-old Ford fanatic in me wasn't so one-eyed as what I as I used to be, I guess. When especially when you get involved in the sport and you understand the politics and everything else that goes on behind the scenes, that you have a different appreciation for the manufacturers and what's involved and what actually goes on in team lands. So very different when you watch it from a fan point of view. But still a Ford man at heart. I've actually got a couple of old Fords myself. So
nice.
I've actually got a Pommy Ford that I'm doing up at the moment, which is a Mark One Ford Zephyr, which used to be my grandfather's. So
Nice.
very much a Ford man, and that probably won't change.
Yeah. Good stuff. Just going to put this out there. When I was growing up watching, I was more Holden, but that's only because we didn't have Holdens over here. I thought, oh, that's kind of new.
Yes, yeah.
What's that? It was the old Commodore, like Peter Brock and
Yeah, because I think what was it, Vauxhall over there had a Holden copy, I think,
yeah,
from memory. Yeah.
yeah. I always just thought it was different. It was cool. But yeah, I think like Mark Scaife was in them and all those other guys. Remember Larry Perkins binning one, the Bathurst as well. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, but we're not going to fight about it. It's fine. Just want to talk about 2017 quickly, because I mean, as you said, yeah, like the Holden in 16, the fresher car for 17, and you kind of hit the ground running straight away. I mean, I guess your eyes were on the championship anyway, but you hit the ground running. I mean, I saw Adelaide, you went second, first, home win, perfect start to that season, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, got my very first Super 2 win in Supercars at home in Adelaide.
Yeah,
Very special. And yeah, as you said, we very much had our sights set on the championship. We finished fourth in 2015, third in 2016. We didn't want to go one better, we wanted to go two better. We got close in 2016. We had a few dramas late in the year, and we just sort of missed the championship title hunt at the end in the last round. So yeah, worked tremendously hard over the off season. We acquired a fresh car. It was very similar to one we had, just a little bit fresher, and preseason testing went really well, and yeah, we come out the first round swinging, and we had really stiff competition. We had multiple guys that were sort of 3 or 4 years into the sport at that stage. Paul Dumbrell was a veteran. He'd already won Bathurst, and he was very much the yardstick for the category, and I was up against him as well. So it becomes sort of a 3-horse race between Paul Dumbrell, Jack LeBrock, and myself for the title as the year progressed. And yeah, we minimised our bad days. We had a lot of success. In particular, the last round was probably our best round. We actually went into the last round of the championship second in points. We had about a 46-point deficit, which was not unachievable, but it was a decent amount to find. And we
yeah,
sort of needed everything to go our way. And it was a brand new track to the Supercars racing at Townsville, so no one had ever raced there before.
yeah,
And we come out swinging. We're fast in practice. We put on pole in both races, and we won both races. And we couldn't do anything better to give ourselves a chance to win the title, and which we did. We won
yeah.
the title, and come down to the last race.
That was a
It
new
was
cat, wasn't it?
probably the most nerve-wracking I've ever been in a race car. I mean, because it meant so much to me to win that title. We've been 4 years of work, working, essentially living in the workshop day and night, getting an opportunity to do it, and then to finally come through with the goods. I remember taking my helmet off and almost being sick from the amount of elation and emotion that was in my
Wow.
body. I've never, yeah, it had never ever felt like that before. Just that pure emotion that was in the body that come out of me, and incredibly cool feeling. And yeah, to be part of that prestigious list, to win a Super Two title, yeah, it does everything right to help you give a shot into supercars and make that next step up. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, rewinding the clock a couple of months before we won the title, I actually had my supercars debut
yeah.
as a wildcard entrant. So
That's
halfway
Ipswich.
through
Yeah,
2017, we'd already were aware that we were in championship winning contention, but trying to get a spot in the Supercars Championship the following year for 2018 was always going to be tough, because essentially we worked out that every driver was on contract. There was only one piece of movement, and that was one driver that was going to sell his license essentially for us, for someone to run a car in the sport. So within the last 6 months of the year, we're basically wheeling and dealing with Jason Bright, trying to secure his racing entitlements contract so we could actually race a car. In 2018. So the Newcastle event in 2017 was massive because we won the title, we clean swept the round, and we actually signed a contract where we would be racing full time in supercars in 2018. We secured the contract, the license agreement. So for more reasons than one, it was a massive weekend, pure elation. But for us, we went into 2018. Both myself and the team were brand new to supercars. We were both rookies, single car team against multiple car teams. We were pushing shit uphill essentially. We were sort of set up to fail, but it gave us an opportunity to be on the main stage. So it was sort of baptism of fire. 2018, we went from winning the championship in 2017 to then just racing at the back of the field in 2018. So 2018 was definitely probably one of my toughest years in sport, in motorsport. It took everything out of me, both physically and emotionally. It was tough. We put so much work into it, and we just weren't getting any glimpse of hope or result or anything. It was tough, but you have your tough days in the sport to appreciate the good ones. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely right. You have to have the troughs to enjoy the peaks. Just about tough days. I don't like talking about this kind of stuff, but everyone I've spoken to, they've had the big shunt, and I don't like talking about big shunts, but it's kind of always nice when people come out the other side of them. This was it Sandown, wasn't it, in one of the wildcard or was it one of the endurance rounds? I can't remember.
Enduro round.
The enduro round,
my very first enduro event. Yeah.
And you basically, it was, from what I could see anyway, absolutely no fault of your own. I was going to say what happened, or what do you remember about it? Because I mean, folks, if you want to have a look, then have a look on YouTube. I saw it once. I don't want to see it again because it was an absolute shocker looking from the outside. But what actually happened? What do you remember of it?
Yeah, unfortunately, I remember every single piece of it.
Yikes!
Ironically, how some drivers say they don't remember much, but I remember every piece of movement that happened in that moment. Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, Sandown 500, 2017. To paint a quick picture for you, it was my very first Supercars endurance campaign. So I was a co-driver for Tim Blanchard racing in the main game Supercars Championship. So that same weekend, I was racing Super 2 in one car and then racing in the Supercars Championship as a co-driver in the other. So two cars on the same weekend, double duties. And I just qualified second on the front row for the Super 2 series, and then jumped in for what they had, the co-driver race, which was basically a qualifying race for the main stage on Sunday. So all the co-drivers are together. My first race working with Tim Blanchard, and it got to, I think it was the second to last lap. We were sort of in a 3-car scrap for, I think it was 15th at the time, like it wasn't for a high position or anything. And we're going 2x2 down the back straight in the turn 6 at Sandown, and Sandown back straight's quite a fast left-hander at the end of the straight. You basically approach it in 6th gear at 275k an hour. You bang it down 1 gear, you turn hard, you turn fast left, and then down a hill into a sharp left-hander. Big high commitment sort of corner. Anyway, I happened to be 2x2 going down the back straight, and then a car behind on the inside of me was also pushing the car behind, so it was almost bump drafting, and I was on the outside.
Yeah.
Went into the braking zone, started turning left, and then the car that was in the bump draft sort of lost all grip off the front wheels, locked up, understeered into me, and I basically had like a full 360, and then just remember being like bracing on the brake, knowing that, oh shit, I'm in a world of trouble here. Like there's been some big incidents at turn 6 at Sandown. I remember going in backwards, going, this is going to be big, and just waiting for the impact. Just remember basically 2 feet on the brake pedal, hands off the steering wheel, and just bracing for impact. And it sort of felt like I was in a washing machine. To be honest, I was up, saw the ground, saw the sky. Then I got covered in mud.
It went
because
round, didn't it, as well?
it
It kind of went
literally
over and round.
dissipated the whole car. Yeah, I think it rolled 4 or 5 times. But because it blew the roof off when it hit the barrier, it literally peeled all the roof off. And then when the car flipped on the roll cage, because it was Sandown's always notoriously wet. So all the infield of the circuit and outfield of the circuit was just like a bog hole. So it filled the cabin full of mud, and like I wear glasses, so I had mud all over my glasses, I had mud all over my white race suit,
Mm.
and yeah, I remember going through this roller coaster of of barrel roll, and remember I knew I was sort of on my side or upside down, and I thought I'd hurt like punctured a rib or broken a rib or something. I was just incredibly badly winded, and we have a cool suit system, so I have a cool suit that runs under my race suit, and that was plugged in. And because I was so worried about my chest, and the first thing I thought of was I won't be able to race the Super 2 race. That's what we're fighting for the championship in,
Right.
because I was injured. That was the first thing I thought of. I remember I clipped the buckle, undid the buckle, and then half fell out the car because I didn't even know I was on my side just for the adrenaline, and I obviously had mud all over my
Yeah.
glasses. I couldn't see, and then I'm half falling out of this race car, and I'm badly winded. I could hardly breathe.
Jeez.
Yeah, so scary, very scary incident. It was, yeah,
Mm.
50 Gs backwards into the concrete wall, I think another 15 or 18 G on my head. So yeah, high impact with the concrete wall, with the tire wall. So yeah, looking back at that incident, yeah, I was a lucky boy not to, just to had a little bit of bruising. I actually begged and pleaded with the medical staff because I was racing 40 minutes later in the Super 2 series
Yeah.
after this incident. So because it was such a big impact, my heart rate was through the roof just because I was in pure, not a little bit of shock of what just happened, but just I was stressing so much that I wasn't going to make the next race for Super 2. And my
Right.
championship rival was starting pole. I was starting second. If I didn't
Oh,
start that race, we wouldn't have won the Super 2 series. So I begged and pleaded with the medical staff. They let me walk off. I changed my race suit because I was covered in mud, changed my race suit, and they actually cleared me on the dummy grid, on the pre-grid. So they did like a medical assessment, jumped in
wow.
the car, drove straight out for the formation lap, and we managed to finish third in that race. But that was probably one of the toughest things I've ever had to do, was to block
Yeah.
out what had just happened. I knew the car was absolutely destroyed. It wasn't our race. It wasn't my race car. It was someone else's car. It
Yeah.
was the first time driving for that team. So at that stage, I didn't even know if it was my fault. It turns out it wasn't. And, the
No.
other driver got a $15,000 fine for reckless driving. So it was quite a serious
Mm.
reprimand. But I guess that shows the height of where he was at fault. But at that stage, I didn't know. I hadn't seen a replay. I didn't want to see a replay of it.
No.
So yeah, jumping back on the horse and having another go in looking back at it was probably one of the best things I could do mentally for myself, to just
Yeah.
switch off, go again, and get on with the job. But yeah, I remember looking back at the incident. I think it was Sunday night, and I was sharing my hotel room with my engineer, Wes McDougall, at the time, and he said, "Have you watched it yet?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, when you're ready, you probably should, because it's pretty impressive."
Yeah.
And yeah, remember watching it back, going, holy heck, like, yeah, you count your lucky stars when you have an incident like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, sure. And if you just see the state of the car, it's just like the roll cage, pretty much, and the bodywork's all sort of blown off and everything. But no, I didn't realise you got back in the car so soon afterwards. That's incredible. Fair play.
Yeah, probably silly saying it out loud, but it's amazing what dedication and emotion can do to the mind and body when you're in the moment. I guess, yeah, it's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
No, absolutely right. That's cool. Kind of puts a positive twist on what was a bad situation. So yeah, we'll move on. But no, thanks. No, thank you for talking about that. So obviously, yeah, that was just quickly that year. You had your first experience of. Oh, we are going to move on, but quick. It was your first experience of the Bathurst 1000 that year as well, wasn't it? Your first time in the in a supercar around Bathurst. I mean, again, I keep coming to Bathurst, but us Brits, we love it. So, but just being in the Bathurst 1000. Is it just like a different atmosphere, a different feel? I mean, I've been to the Indy 500. I've spoken to people who've been to Le Mans and things like that, and it said there's just an atmosphere, like a feel about it. Do you get the same thing as a driver at the 1000?
Oh, 100%. And I guess as a driver, for me, growing up as a race fan, you're aware of how much history the event has and how prestigious the Bathurst 1000 is, for a start. And then when you're a part of, when you stand there on the grid, you feel like you're a part of history, to be honest. You know that this place it's tough to win, and even harder to, it's hard to survive, the 1000K race. It throws everything at you. Bathurst in October is traditionally always, a little bit of winter weather always comes around at some stage throughout the day. And for my first 1000 experience, believe it or not. So we just had, obviously after the Sandown wreck, we had a brand new car for Bathurst. We'd done a shakedown, went straight to Bathurst with it, and I remember we practiced and everything sort of went okay. And Tim Blanchard, who I was teamed up with, were actually standing up at the front of the grid for the national anthem. I remember being nervous as hell. Like it just started raining, so rain was coming down. We still had slicks on the car. And I was just nervous to be part of the 1000. Wow, how big is this? Like it's such a big moment in my life and my career. Never thought it would be possible. And here I am standing up for the great race. It was quite special. And then Tim sort of looks at me and he goes, "It started raining. You're the rainmaster. Do you want to start?" So I just wasn't ready for that at all. I was like, "Oh my
Not
God,"
really.
my mouth, my heart is in my mouth. And then we had, it just sort of escalated from there. So it started raining. Then our windscreen wiper motor failed. We changed the windscreen wiper motor on the grid before the race had started. There was a little bit of drama going on, and then the heavens really opened up, and it started raining quite heavily. So we did the whole race with no windscreen wiper. We didn't fix the issue, and we're literally looking through, specks in the windscreen where, we had a little bit of sight, but essentially we were driving unsighted all day, relying on the tear-offs on the windscreen to sort of clean it in the pit stop, get all the dirt and muck and stuff off it. So it was a long day because it was essentially a wet race all day up until the last stint. So basically driving with no windscreen wiper was one of the toughest things I've ever done at Bathurst. But what a memory for your first 1000. I think we finished 12th or something on debut. So we unfortunately went a lap down after Tim got a penalty, but we were sort of hovering around that sort of 6th or 8th position for most of the day. So even though everything was against us, we still survived. We finished, and looking back at that was an accomplishment in itself.
Yeah, absolutely right. Especially given the conditions and everything. No, very cool. So I mean, obviously, we touched on that first Supercar season, 2018, being like a tricky season. Tricky season for you. I did actually have a look. The first on the grid for your first Supercar season, first full Supercar season. I mean, it was like a who's who of of Supercars drivers. I mean, there was I think Scott McLaughlin was on there, Shane Van Gisbergen was on there, Jamie Whincup, Craig Lowndes, Chaz Mostert, Nick Perkett, David Reynolds, Garth Tander, Will Davidson, Cam. I mean, crikey, that's a high level to go into, isn't it? It's I think any result you can get is a good one on a grid that's that stacked, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. As I said, trying to get into that elite 2026 was really tough as a young aspiring driver because basically more than half the field were all legends. They're
Yeah,
drivers that have been there, done it all, and incredibly experienced. The teams were not really looking at rookies at that stage, in that time. So yeah, there was myself, Anton De Pasquale, and I think Jack LeBrock were the 3 rookies that entered the championship that year. It was like a new wave of drivers coming into the sport, and it was quite exciting. But yeah, it was tough. And as I said, 2018 being both myself and the team being rookies in the sport was a real eye opener. But we had nothing going for us. We were the smallest team. We're the only single car team. Very inexperienced looking back at it all. But hey, yeah, we're on the grid. We were part of that elite group, and we sort of learned a lot in our first year. And then 2019, we sort of revisited how we went about our approach as a team. Still a single car team. But yeah, we come out the first round swinging. We basically set up a customer alliance program with Triple Eight Racing, which was obviously the leading team at the time. We went out to the first round at Adelaide 500, and we out qualified both Shane Van Gisbergen and Jamie Whincup, and put it into the shootout. And everyone was just like, "What the hell? Like, where are these guys come from?" So it's sort of, after a really tough 2018, we instantly put ourselves back on the map in 2019. So it was a perfect, I guess, response after a tough year for me. And yeah, 2019 was cool. We had a fast car. We just probably got a little bit unlucky. Just we had a few staff issues, and trying to keep the maintenance on the car was honestly probably one of the toughest things. We didn't have very good pit stops, and well, there were times where we were in podium contention. We just let it slip away in important stages of the race. But yeah, still had some great memories, great times, and learned a lot. It was yeah, one of those years where we just kept learning, we kept developing, and started to, I guess, create a reputable name for myself in the industry, which is a tough thing to do in amongst an elite group of drivers.
yeah, absolutely. Especially on that, on that grid as well, as we alluded to. Excuse me. What was it? I just want to look into 2019. Actually, I mean, your best result to date in the series. You took fifth at Pukekohe. The only four guys ahead of you were McLaughlin, Van Gisbergen, Mostert, and Percat. I mean, that must have given you a bit of a shot in the arm, thinking that you can mix it with these guys in just your second season, given what had gone on as well. That
Yeah.
must have
For
been
us, we'd sort
very
of
cool.
been knocking on the door of those results. We're sort of always hovering in the back half of the top 10, and to get a top 5 result with, as you mentioned, with that elite group of team and drivers, for us being a single car outfit, sort of out on our own at the end of pit lane, doing our own thing. I guess if you look at it, it'd sort of be like sort of seeing Huss on the podium. You just don't expect it. That was sort of the analogy for us, I guess. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really cool. It was a moment that we celebrated. Even for us, honestly, even whenever we got inside the top 10, it was like a win. It was, such a competitive sport, such, high end level to be operating in. So for us to be a part of that elite group was always cool. So yeah, I guess looking back at 2019, you always want more as a driver, but I was fully aware of our team situation and where we're at. And my experience was getting to a point where I knew I could, if I had the equipment, I could get podiums and get race wins. It just needed to have the complete package to be able to take that next step. So, hence why obviously in 2020, I then made the move to Brad Jones Racing. So I walked away from Matt Stone Racing. So I've been with MSR from 2014 all the way up to 2019 at the end of 2019. So it was a massive part of my life, my career. I actually got basically sacked in a boardroom meeting. So I didn't leave on my own merit. I wanted to stay, but I essentially got sacked. So it was just a change of business model for them. I wasn't a paying driver, as you call it. I was very much still helping find sponsors and stuff. But at that stage, they basically needed drivers that could flip the bill because they were struggling to hit the payments required and to help grow the team. They couldn't have someone like me driving for them because yeah, I couldn't pay the bills. So I was basically moved on and then picked up a drive with Brad Jones Racing for the start of 2020. And obviously, as we know, 2020 turned out to be one hell of a crazy year. COVID happened right in the middle of the second round of our championship, which was at the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. So we just finished Thursday practice, fronted up for Friday morning. I remember having my helmet on for qualifying. We're all sitting in the pits waiting. What's going on? No, all the rumors that Lewis Hamilton had flown home and all this madness was going on. And, obviously people were protesting about COVID and all sort of stuff. So, yeah, it sort of changed the way of the land for us in supercars in 2020. And we all went a 3-month break sitting at home, twiddling our thumbs, doing E-Series. So,
Yeah.
it all changed very quickly. So, 2020 was interesting. Once we did get back racing, I was very competitive.
Yeah.
Back to my well, I was actually in race winning contention in my first race back after post COVID. And then we had a front roll bar failure, which was devastating because I finally felt like I got the chance to get my first podium in supercars. And then we had a mechanical failure. And then we actually raced a week later at the same venue and I got third that following weekend. So I got my first podium in supercars, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Then we went to Townsville. I got my first pole position. So
Yeah.
2020 was definitely a breakthrough year for me in supercars, and we had a. It's funny, like looking back at COVID, we had a lot of mechanical issues that year, and I just wish if things maybe been a bit different, it might have changed the path for me a little bit, and I might have been able to get a race win or two a little bit earlier in my career. But that was one thing that it took me a long time to be able to achieve, obviously, and we had some good highs and lows. I think we finished 8th at Bathurst, and it was
Yeah.
sort of a decent year, even though 2020 and 2021 even was troubled with COVID. We got through it, and we had some good success.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned your first pole actually at Townsville. Now, anyone who's seen these knows I love a street circuit. I just whatever series it is. First pole there, and you said that you've always been quite good with the old street circuits. I mean, I guess Townsville is one that you really like.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's funny. Everyone in pit lane always knows when Todd goes to Townsville, watch out. For whatever, as I said, for whatever reason, I think it's just the challenge of the circuit. Throwing the car around, being comfortable with the concrete walls. It seems to suit my driving style, I guess. when I can be aggressive with the car, it seems I seem to get more out of myself as well. So no, yeah, got my first pole, which was really cool, and we led the whole race up until a late safety car, and unfortunately, it didn't suit our strategy because we had old tires on the car, and the guys had done the alternate. We got passed with laps from just a couple of laps remaining, so that was sort of gut wrenching because I felt like we'd done everything right, put it on pole, we led the whole race, was super consistent, had a fast pit stop, but we just didn't have the right strategy when the safety car fell. So wasn't meant to be. I never thought it would take years later to get an opportunity like that to fight for a race win again. We got close with a couple of podium opportunities, but never really had that opportunity to fight for a win. It was tough, and that started to eat away at me, to be honest. Being years later, still hadn't got a race win. I'd had a podium, but never had that elusive race win. Guys that I felt like I was, had the either even on par or more talent of were doing more successful things in the sport and being given better opportunities. And that's where I guess the frustration in the sport starts to eat away at you because you're capable, you can do a good job. I just couldn't get the right opportunity, couldn't surround myself with the right team and equipment to I felt really show what I could do. After 2022, I then moved back to the Cool Drive team, so who I actually did my first endurance campaign with. That I raced with Tim Blanchard. So I was then racing full time for their team. They were a single car outfit in 2023, and that was the new change of Gen 3 regulations. And we were the only single car team in pit lane. We had no technical alliance. We were very much doing it ourselves, and we had a pretty strong start to the year. We had a couple of top tens. We had a fourth at Perth, and things were actually going really good considering our backs were up against the wall. Smallest team in pit lane. We had a lot of staff issues. I was working on the car in the workshop myself, just trying to help keep the team alive at that stage. It was pretty tough. So there was a lot of mess going on in the background, but we were still fronting up, getting results. But the back half of the year was honestly disastrous. We just had dramas after drama. And at that stage, I was getting pretty fed up and pretty frustrated where I was at that time in the sport because I knew I was capable. I knew I felt like I needed to change something in my approach in the sport because what I was doing wasn't working. Essentially, I was basically out of a drive because of that. Basically accepting drives that weren't up to spec, and unfortunately, some teams they want to be seen to be on the big stage, but they don't want to do the work to get the ultimate results. And for me, as we spoke about, I'm wired to win. I want to get results, and I want to win races. And especially when I hadn't won my first supercar race yet, I was desperately looking for an opportunity where I could change that. So I took a risk at the end of 2023. I said no to full-time driving in supercars. I stepped away. Really tough thing to do after, essentially nearly 10 years of work to be at that elite, which was in the elite 24 at this stage now. So 24 spots available to be part of the supercars gig, but I just knew what I was doing wasn't giving me an opportunity to win races. So I actually went back to co-driving at the start of 2024, signed with the championship winning team, Erebus Motorsport. I knew Brody Kostecki really well. We were roommates back in 2019, 2020. And he just obviously had a great year of Erebus, and he said, I want you as my co-driver. Let's go win Bathurst together. So
wow,
it's funny how, looking back at that conversation at the end of 2023, so I signed with Erebus, and obviously, history speaks for itself. What transpired after that?
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, obviously, the two big things I want to talk about 2020, well, three actually, about last year. Obviously, you were there as a co-driver, but you ended up doing the first couple of rounds, didn't you? Because obviously, and I'm not going to dig or pry or anything, because there was all kinds of nonsense going on about what was going on with what was going on with Brody, and I'm not going to go into it. But that was an unexpected, not bonus given the circumstances that it was in, but I guess it just got you some more seat time that you weren't expecting in what was a championship winning car. So that must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, and you talk about sliding doors moment. So I just said no to a backfield sort of running drive to then jumping with the championship winning team. I was signed up as a reserve driver or co-driver, if you call it. And then, obviously there was a few dramas with Brody at the start of the year. He didn't do the first 2 rounds of the year, and I was thrown in the hot seat. Championship winning team and driver,
Yeah.
winning combination, I guess. And we had a great start to the year. We had two really good rounds, and then Brody then jumped back in, so which was always part of the plan. But for me, it was just good to get some extra laps, get an understanding how the Camaro was different to the Ford, and the intricacies of how they set a car up. So I certainly had the upper leg, I guess, or upper advantage going into the Enduros, knowing that I already had a good taste of the car and wasn't going in completely foreign. So yeah, jumped in the car for Sandown. We're in race winning contention. We're fighting for a podium, and I was battling with the goat, if you call it, Jamie Whincup, 7-time touring car champion and multiple Bathurst winner. So we're having a good scrap, and we banged doors, and unfortunately I got a puncture. So I had a right front tyre, which put us at the back of the field. Come in, made a pit stop, and then had a storming drive. We went from last all the way back up to 7th, and then
Yeah.
Brody got the car into a podium contention. I'm thinking, here we are. We're finally, the risk was worth taking, in my opinion. It was like, it took me 3 years to get that podium feeling or race winning contention feeling back in the body. And although we actually had an alternator failure with, I think, 10 laps remaining, so we didn't finish on the podium, but we felt like we had a car that was capable of winning a race, and that was obviously the precursor going to Bathurst. So the motivation was at an all-time high going to the Bathurst 1000 last year. We knew we had a fast race car. Brody and I were both in sync with each other. We both liked the way we set the car up. We both drive very similar, so we complemented each other really well. We spent a lot of time at the workshop trying to refine the car, get the last little 1%ers out of it before Bathurst. And yeah, we went to Bathurst. We had that car dialed in, and yeah, Brody did a stonking lap, put it on pole position, and we led
Yeah.
from start to finish in what was the fastest finish at Bathurst. We only had one safety car. It was a very much a sprint race for
Yeah.
6 hours, just under 6 hours it was. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was an incredible moment. Yeah, and 294 races later, I finally got my first Supercars race win at the pinnacle of Australian motorsport, being the Bathurst 1000. So, as you can imagine, absolute dream come true.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. Absolutely beside myself as far as emotion. We talk about feelings and what you feel in the moment. I could never describe it because it was everything coming at me all at once. And
Yeah.
for people that did see the reaction post race, it paints a pretty good picture of how I felt. There was no word that I was very excited, to say the least.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I actually couldn't believe it. As I said, I've been kind of like following you, for a few years and stuff. I was actually surprised that it was your first. Where I thought, I'm, I'm sure you won. But I think because I'd seen you in contention for wins and things, but it hadn't crossed the line. But I mean, what a way to get the first one. I mean, if you only get one in your career, I mean, that's the one to get. I can't imagine how that must have felt, to win the Bathurst 1000. I mean, to me as a British motorsport fan watching Aussie motorsport, it's a big thing. But knowing how huge it is there, I mean, I bet you had a good night, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we certainly enjoyed the moment. That's for sure. Yeah, yeah. We just, as I said, just one of the best feelings in the world. Just more the pure elation and relief that to finally say that you've done it.
Yeah,
And as I said, no better place that you could do it at being a 1000. So to put your name in the history books, be the 66th winner of the great race. There's not too many people that can. There's been a lot of successful race car drivers that have never managed to win the Bathurst 1000. So
yeah,
very proud, very privileged to be a part of that now, moving forward. And you get greedy. We've won it once, and now obviously we want to go back and do it all again this year. So yeah, the motivation's at an all-time high to keep that form going. And yeah, we'll see what we can do this year now.
yeah. I think so. I'm looking forward to it already. Looking forward to it already. Just quickly, just to finish up on Supercars. Obviously, you're now with the legendary Dick Johnson Racing for the enduro rounds. What a great team to be involved with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be part of the team at DJR, wearing obviously the iconic shell colours. To be honest, as I mentioned, I wanted Ford supporters growing up as a kid, and I used to very much be a fanboy of DJR. I used to send Dick Johnson's son Stephen, letters as a kid, wishing him good luck or things like that. So yeah, it was a full circle moment, I guess, from being a race fan to then being in the inner circle, being in the workshop, driving the factory Ford car for DJR. It was incredibly cool. Very, very proud to be part of that. So, it's funny when you drive for teams over the years. Doing it for a while, it sort of feels like the same thing, but a little bit different. You have different problems or different personnel and whatever. But when you drive for DJR, you actually feel like you're a part of something special. Part of the heritage. So the longest serving team in our sport. Obviously, Dick's had a huge amount of success,
Yeah.
and he's arguably done it all in our sport and got the reputation and the iconic values to go along with that. So to be a part of that now is incredibly cool. As I said, dream come true. So very much living the dream at the moment,
Yeah.
and would love to try and get a Bathurst win for DJR with Brody this year again for sure.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. And I'm old enough that I remember Dick Johnson racing in the RS 500, which is just so cool. One of my favourite cars I've ever seen.
Iconic Sierra, one of the coolest race cars ever. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I love them. I've got a big poster over there with loads of them on it still. Age 44, I've still got a poster of RS 500. But no, I obviously wish you well for Bathurst and everything. Just another couple of bits I want to touch on before we just do some fun little bits at the end. And I have seen the comments coming in, guys. Don't worry. You've actually won 3 times at Bathurst. You've kind of got like the full set. I mean, you got the 12 hours and the 6 hour. Obviously the class win in the 6 hour and sorry, no, you came second. Sorry, in the 12 hour. But I mean,
Yep.
to have won 2 and come second in the other, it's a pretty cool thing to have. I mean, I always like the Bathurst 12 hour. It kind of gets overshadowed over here by the 1000, but I was like the 12 hour just because of it's starting at kind of dawn and all that kind of stuff, and it's just a very cool race to be in, isn't it? And you were in the Audi.
Oh, it is. It's by far. I've only actually done one 12-hour race back in 2019. Yeah, drove an Audi GT3 for the first time, and yeah, one of the coolest things I've done. Such a long day behind the wheel or sitting in the pits, and it's such a big build up, lots of practice. Being at the track 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning to get ready for the start. Yeah, it's quite a surreal challenge, but yeah, we were pro-am entry for that year, and we got second in class and eighth outright with the lead Audi. We bet all the factory Audis, so that was quite cool. But yeah, never had an opportunity to jump behind the wheel again since. So yeah, I'd love to try and do it again. But as I say, yeah, I've been really fortunate to have a little bit of success at the mountain this year in particular. We won the Trans Am series round there. We had a race win and won the round, and then on the same day, same weekend, I raced in a secondary class, but we were third outright in the Bathurst 6 hour and first in class. So to get on the outright podium in a secondary class car was really cool. And
Yeah,
yeah, now that's my second class win at Bathurst in the 6 hours. So anytime you can race at the mountain is a fantastic day at work. And yeah, we'll let the good times keep rolling.
yeah, fantastic, superb. Just want to quickly touch though on because you are still racing kind of full time last year and this year in the Trans Am series, and it's in the family team, isn't it? Excuse me. How did that sort of come about? Was it just something that you wanted to do, obviously with the cars that you had, or how did you come to be in the Trans Am series with the family team?
Yeah, it's quite a cool story actually. Yeah, so Brett Thomas, who owns TFH Hire here in Australia, quite a successful hire company for events around the country, and they had a background in speedway racing, but never done circuit racing before. And I actually ironically, I just had a message on LinkedIn from his son Josh, and he said, "Hey, we want to get involved in circuit racing. We hear you're quite handy in the workshop." And at that stage, I just knocked back my full-time drive in Supercars in 2023. So I guess it was a bit of a sliding doors moment. I was looking for something else to race, and
Yeah,
they said, "What do you know about Trans Ams?" And I said, "Nothing, but keen to learn more." And that was where it all sort of started, to be honest. I'd done a couple of charity lunches for him where I donated my time essentially and done a couple of talks at some of their events and didn't think anything of it. So that was sort of where that connection had started from, but never knew that they were going to get involved in racing or anything like this. So yeah, we basically started with an empty workshop at the start of last year. We got a couple of Trans Am cars, and we basically started from scratch. I didn't know anything about them. I've started doing all my own setups, and yeah, it was a really cool challenge because it sort of took me back to where I guess my Super 2 days where I was working on the car, I was engineering the car, helping call the shots within the team, trying to grow this program up. And then halfway through the year, we started to really find some momentum. We started getting race wins. We started beating the team that had won the last 2 years of the or 3 years of the championship. And then we put ourselves in title contention right into the last round. We took the lead with a round to go, and yeah, we won the championship on debut. So last year was really cool for that. Basically doing it ourselves as a family pet project was really cool, and yeah, had a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, great stuff. And obviously, great to win in the first year. I actually saw a bit of footage on YouTube, and they look cool and they sound cool as well. They're cool sounding cars, aren't they? Proper sounding.
Yeah, no, they are. They're a proper driver's car. They're on a cross-ply tyre of the Hoosier, so they got a big sidewall, so they do move around a lot on the sidewall, and they don't have much aero, but they are quite a light car. They're only 1,200 kilos, 550 horsepower, and the Hoosier tyre, although it moves around a lot, it is still quite grippy. But yeah, it creates fantastic racing. You can race nose to tail pretty much the whole race. The cars are very even. They have a lot of control parts in the car, so control shocks, control suspension, control bodywork. The same engine supply for all the makes and models. They're all an LS engine. It doesn't matter if you run a Ford or run the Mustang, Chev, or the Dodge. They all have the same LS engine. So as far as parity, it's very similar, and I think that's what creates really close, great racing. And yeah, it's been a great addition to my program. It keeps me sharp for the Supercar Enduros, and yeah, plenty of racing, plenty of good hard battles, and yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, great stuff. So, guys, check it out on YouTube. Australian Trans Am, very, very cool. Right, I've just got a couple of bits I want to pick up, and then actually, no, it was just like a little general thing that I wanted to sort of talk about. There's a lot of imbalance, particularly last year in supercars or the year before, with it being very sort of Chevy heavy, and it's sort of gone more back the other way now. I mean, I know there's a lot of Aussies down there. They're not particularly enamored with the way this series has gone the last couple of years. I'm just wondering what you think could be done, to make it not get it back to the glory days that it was, but just to level things off a little bit, because certainly like the AAA racing guys were just all over it a couple of years ago, weren't they? Before Brody did his thing.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, there's a few things, I guess, like to paint a quick picture, like Gen 3, when that rolled out, we had a brand new chassis, brand new engines, brand new control suspension, which had never been seen in our sport before. Gen 2, teams had their own uprights to a certain parameter, their own roll bars to a certain parameter, still had control tire, still had control shock, but people had their own engine builders built to spec. So there was a lot of differences in amongst the field before 2023. And then we went to basically, I guess, very NASCAR-like, in a way, sort of like NASCAR, but probably more controlled again. But the only difference being from the Ford to the Chev was the engine and the aero, but everything else underneath was the same. So, if you're trying to identify where there's a difference in the car or disparity against the cars, it was pretty obvious that everyone had the same equipment and, well, essentially all setting them up very similar. You can sort of see the way the cars come into the corner. They're all on droop restriction. They all got the rear wheel carrying into the corner and all that sort of stuff. So it really come down to Chev obviously had the upper hand with obviously the aero because they were quick in a straight line and could pull them up in the corners, but also straight line handling of the engine themselves. So trying to get parity between the two was really tough, but also to paint a picture for you, it all happened very quickly behind the scenes. In a matter of 6 or 8 months, they basically introduced a brand new engine, and previous to that, we've been using the same pushrod 5-liter V8 engine for 2 decades. Obviously, it revolutionized to a point where it was a very, very nice piece of engineering to something that was very rough and ready thrown into us teams, and everyone was like, what is this? Like this is not to our standard, I guess, but that was the rules that we were given. And yeah, as a Ford team, it was really tough in 2023 for us because I remember at Darwin I was a lead Ford car, and we finished 8th, and that was a good day. It was hard to accept that was becoming the standard or the normal, I guess, moving forward. So 2023 was really tough for Ford teams, and then going from a Ford to then a Chev in 2024 last year, it really was apparent to me, wow, how much different the two cars were. So definitely Supercars, I still believe, have done a fantastic job to help with the parity, because it's such a tricky thing to get right, to either overcook or undercook it, no matter what way you go. They've invested massive amounts in trying to get the parity right between engines, and we're very much not a BOP sport. We don't just react to one team doing good versus the other like you would in GT3 racing, because I don't think that's right. But when it's so close, like we saw at Darwin on the weekend, that all 24 cars are separated by 6.5 tenths. Like it's so close, and the only reason it's so close because the rules are so tight and everyone's got the same equipment. So when there is a little bit of disparity in an engine, that stands out like a sore thumb. So that's definitely going to be an ongoing issue, but that's just reality when you got two engines that are very different, trying to achieve the same torque curve, the same fuel usage, the same horsepower. Yeah, that's going to be the issue moving forward. So it's getting better. Still some work that needs to be done, no doubt. But I think the biggest issue with the Ford engine at the moment is just from what I'm hearing, this is all just he said she said stuff. But it sounds like the air intake temperatures once the Coyote gets hot, we start to have a significant drop off in horsepower. So the way the restrictor works and a few other things. So still some work to be done there, but yeah, there's smarter people than me trying to sort that out. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Love that. No, we're pleased to hear about someone who's in the know talking about it, which is good. Right, okay, just a couple of bits. Then just some phone questions because we need to wrap up pretty quick. I did see Dylan Stratton. She's actually here. Where are we? Dylan Stratton has said the helmets and the display behind you look awesome. Are they all yours or are they some swaps?
No, they're all mine. Yeah, all
Very
from
cool.
Super 2 days or Supercars. That's the blue one's my Bathurst 1000 winning helmet.
Yeah,
Yeah, the one next to it is my first podium and pole position helmet in Supercars.
awesome.
So plenty of good memories here. Got some more stuff over the other side that you can't see. So this is my little office. This is where I tap away and do my phone calls and do my business, I guess, if you call it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's my little home away from home.
No, cool. Good stuff. Good stuff. There's a couple of bits in here. Someone did actually say about the accident that you had, Jim McKendrick. He said, I think I speak for a lot of fans when I say we're glad you got back in the car straight away. Best thing to do. The YouTube footage is terrifying. It is. Absolutely. No, right. Okay. Okay. Just a few little fun questions that I like to do right at the end, and then we'll let you get on with your day and us Brits can go and have a lie down. Obviously, did you have a favourite driver when you were very young growing up?
I did. I certainly did. I pretty much admired anyone that was really good at their craft, but definitely Marcus Ambrose. Back in the day, he was one of the leading Ford drivers, but also back-to-back Supercars champion, and obviously then left Supercars and went to NASCAR. But for me, he was my hero growing up, and probably Craig Lance as well. I think everyone's lying if they didn't admire Craig Lance at some stage of their
Absolutely
career.
right. Yeah. No, that's cool. Is there anyone you particularly admire now? I know there's a couple of guys who have gone from supercars onto other things. Pretty obvious who I'm talking about, the two. But is there anyone that you particularly admire now who's either in supercars or has gone on elsewhere?
Um, no one in particular. I just love sports, like whether it's we talk about say the likes of say Roger Federer and how he presents himself, how he conducts himself, and how he plays. He's the ultimate professional. I like people like that. Like
Yeah,
they're the sort of attributes that I like in whether it's a race driver or a sports person. So, yeah, that's probably it for me. Yeah.
yeah, cool. Any other non-Australian racing series that you follow? Anything like F1, or do you follow like NASCAR, IndyCar, anything like that?
Yeah, definitely between NASCAR and IndyCar. Obviously, we've got a couple of our supercar drivers that have made that transition. Shane Van Gisbergen just recently. So I've
Yeah,
been keeping a little bit of an eye on that. More so, probably the circuit events than the ovals. I probably tune out too easily watching the oval stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, definitely the streets. Obviously the road course NASCAR stuff is something that I'm keeping a keen eye in. Would love to have a crack myself if there was an opportunity available. But yeah, and obviously still watch F1 as much as I can. They race so much now; it's hard to keep up. But
Yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah,
obviously very much cheering on Oscar Piastri at the moment. He's doing a phenomenal job, and just wish him
absolutely.
all the best. And hopefully, he can get the job done in the driver's title this year. He's certainly well on his way, showing all the right attributes to be a champion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sort of know the Brits would be shouting Lando at the screen right now, but I'm actually with you on Oscar Piastri. I think he's just so, he isn't making any silly mistakes, is he? He's just doing his thing, which Lando perhaps isn't. But yeah,
Yeah, look,
very,
if I'm not even being biased. I just think he's just doing a phenomenal job. You know,
yeah,
he's qualifying well, he's racing well, he's taken high risk moves and done it cleanly and done it fairly. Conducts himself well in the media. So you can,
exactly
I guess,
that.
from a driver, what I look for is how they respond in certain instances. You know, even obviously the incident they had just the other day, his initial
Yeah,
response, you could tell that he was completely well, not unfazed, but just the way he controlled his emotion,
yeah,
his response in the media. He doesn't bark up, he doesn't tense up. He takes it in his strides, and I think that's always a really strong act. It's hard. It's honestly, it's hard to get to that level and be like that. So I think he's, yeah, well on his way to do good things.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. I like this one. Do you have any pre-race rituals? Are you a superstitious person?
I used to be very superstitious as a young kid in go-karts. And I think it's hard not to. When you have a good result, you want to try and do everything the same as last time. But very much got to the point in my career where I go, hey, you make your own luck.
Yeah,
There is no such thing as luck. You know, you're very much in control of your own destiny with the people that are around you. Yes, things go wrong, but things go wrong for a reason. So I just like to be organized. That's my biggest thing. If I feel rushed, or things are out of place, or things are even untidy, I've got a pretty high level of OCD. I think I like everything to be neat and tidy and organized. So yeah, as long as that's all sorted, I'm all okay.
yeah, good stuff. Happy days. Okay, have you got a favourite circuit to race and one that you'd like to race on anywhere in the world?
Yes, I'd love to have a crack at the Green Hell. And it's actually getting announced this morning. They'll actually be heading over to Spa next week. So I fly out on Wednesday, and we're racing in a 25-hour Fun Cup with the guys at TFH Racing. So it's going to be an
Oh,
all Aussie
cool!
team. We're going to Europe. I've never been to Europe before.
Wow.
Cannot wait. It's going to be an incredibly cool experience. So racing at Spa, which, like we said, if there's ever a track that you want to go race at Europe, it's Spa. I'm hoping I got enough time on the Monday to maybe go to go to the Nürburgring and maybe try and do a lap if I can. Don't know what the rules and how it all works over there, but I need to work it all out. But yeah,
Have a
that's
look.
on the bucket list, ready to do.
Wow, that's. I mean, people will know. Actually, I was at the 6 hours of Spa a few weeks ago, 6, 7 weeks ago, and I knew Spa was good, but it's not till you get there you think. I mean, obviously, it used to be an old road course, like street course, and we drove around parts of the old bit around Burnonville and stuff. But even the circuit they've got there, you thought, who the hell thought to put a circuit here? But it's incredible. You will love it when you get there because
Yeah, no, I
but just
cannot wait. It's gonna be very cool.
don't walk up the grandstand at the back of Eau Rouge because your calves. Well, we'll do it after you've raced because your calves will kill you.
Good
It's
to know.
proper.
Yeah, might take the golf buggy.
Yeah, absolutely right. If it gets up there, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's very cool. Okay, two more. What's your favourite race car that you've raced?
Oh,
It's a tricky one.
favorite race car. I mean, probably last year's Bathurst car was very cool. It was just a well set up car. It was dialed in, and we had the ultimate success. So yeah, don't get much better than that.
Yeah, spot on. I thought it might be. Okay, last question. It's a rotten question. I ask it to everyone. There's no answer to it, so I don't even know why I asked it. But anyway, you've shared the track with some great racers already. Just having sort of raced around Australia there. I'm just gonna name a few. In some that I mentioned earlier on that were on your first grid. You've also raced in the 12 hours. You raced against guys like James Hinchcliffe and Alex Rossi and Matt Campbell and Rafael Marciello, Augusto Farfus, Pedro Lamy, Roman Dumas, Maro Engel, Van der Linde. You've raced against obviously the guys you mentioned earlier, Chaz Moster, but Kevin Estra, Ivan Capelli as well, Scott McLaughlin, Shane Van Gisbergen, Wincup Lowndes, etc., etc. Lots of very impressive names. Is there any one of those that you've shared the track with or you've seen in person that has impressed you in any way? Maybe not as being the best, or anything, but just you like the way they go about what they do, and
Ooh.
not that you look up to, but you
I mean,
think he's good
it's different when they're an immediate rival. It's sort of
when they're right
you want to
next to you.
do
Yeah,
everything in your mind not to like them, I guess. But
yeah,
no,
yeah,
definitely respect where respect is due. There's quite a few drivers that I'd probably dip my hat to, for sure. You know, here in Australia, obviously, you know, the dominance that McLaughlin showed when he in his time with DJR was incredibly impressive. His qualifying record was undeniable. Obviously, they had a car that was completely in sync with his driving style, and they were getting the most out of it week in, week out. So it's definitely, as far as dominance, that's probably the best I've seen in the sport. But then you look at someone like Jamie Whincup, you know, to win 7 championships in our sport, like it's so competitive and so cutthroat, and for someone to have that level of dominance for so long, I think, you know, you got to dip your hat to that. Yeah, and he's still a hardcore racer. You know, as much as I come off second best in my battle with him last year at Sandown, I look back and I think, geez, that's pretty cool. You know, I got to race one of the best in the sport, well, the most successful guy in the sport, fighting for a podium. And then we went out to Bathurst and they finished second and we won the race. So to go out and, you know, have that level of respect for guys like that is really cool. But obviously, there's no doubt you can't deny the natural talent that, say, Shane Van Gisbergen has. You know, his adaptability, whether it's a supercar, a world rally car, a drift car, NASCAR, he's anything he drives in, he gets the most out of it and does a bloody good job. So
yeah.
as far as natural talent, I think Shane's up there with one of the best I've ever witnessed in my time.
Yeah, I think I actually said when he went out to NASCAR and did so well initially in Chicago, wasn't it? I thought, is there anyone better on the planet? I mean, well, certainly he's so underrated. Obviously, he's not known as much here, but in the global sense, he's a proper underestimated guy. And yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
super impressive chap. No, that's great stuff. I mean, we've gone 12 minutes over from where we had planned to be, but I hope that's not too much of a problem. Firstly, guys, I've seen all the comments and questions and all the conversations you've been having. Thank you very much for tuning in, for your support. But obviously, biggest thanks go to you, Todd, for getting up nice and early there in Australia just to come and have a chat. And it's been great. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thanks to everyone that's tuned in the comments as well. Hope you've all enjoyed my chat, enjoyed my story, and learned something a little bit different about what we do over here in Australia as well.
Yeah.
So, hey, if anyone's at Spa next weekend, make sure you come say g'day. We'd love to meet you as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, just really appreciate you having me on the show and diving deep, sorry, into my story. It's been really cool to go back in time and relive some of those moments.
That's great. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed it as well. And obviously, wish you all the best for the rest of the Trans Am season, of course, for the enduro rounds and that certain race around a mountain as well. We wish you all the best.
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. Good night or have a good day if you're where Todd is. Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.